Hey, it's your financial maven, Samantha Besnoff, CPA. And for the last 30 years, yes, 30 years in the accounting world, I absolutely love sharing my insights and passion about money for individuals, entrepreneurs, and small business owners. Knowing your money and hopefully feeling less stressed about your money is what I call being financially empowered. Welcome to the Your Financial Maven podcast. Welcome to another episode of Your Financial Maven. I am so excited to have you guys listening in today. The guest I have with me, her name is Liz Wolfe. Liz is a business coach, and you started your business about 25 years ago with your husband. You did grow up on a sheep farm, actually in Western Pennsylvania. I am born and raised, and I've lived in Pennsylvania my entire life, but I'm on the eastern side. I grew up in the Philly area, went to school out in Pittsburgh, and ended up in the Lancaster area.
I was in Pittsburgh at the same time.
Yeah, maybe. I've been out, almost 30 years now. So I miss Pittsburgh. I absolutely love it. But like I mentioned, you have your own business coaching business. You are an entrepreneur. But you did, I guess, you moved away. You moved out of the state of Pennsylvania to the New York City area. You're still in the New York City area?
I sure am.
I have family that lives in New York, both in the city. I've had family living in the suburbs, White Plains area. And my oldest just graduated from college out of Pleasantville area. So know New York fairly well. I will still call it the Tappan Zee Bridge, no matter what they call it. Forever. If you're ever driving over the Governor Cuomo Bridge over the Hudson, it is actually the Tappan Zee. Whomever you talk to, it will always be the Tappan Zee. And another fun fact about Liz is you play the ukulele, which I think is awesome. And I think you're still in a singing duo. I think I'm getting this right. Ukalicious, is that correct?
That's absolutely right.
That is awesome. So I'm going to get into it. I'm going to ask you what I ask all of my guests, and you can answer this from a personal aspect, being an entrepreneur yourself, from the clients that you work with. What is money?
Well, money is really an energetic exchange.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's a way we've created as human beings to equalize my energetic exchange and your energetic exchange.
I think that's great. I've never heard it in that aspect of being energy. You know, I've heard it about loving your money as a tool, but I think that's great. And I think you can use that for both personal and for business.
Absolutely. Especially in business, because while I'm putting out an effort, a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with how to charge for their services and
I agree.
The whole feeling worthy and deserving.
I mean, I struggle. I've been a solopreneur for 11 years, and I struggle with my pricing because I need to value my service and value my certification as a CPA. And, when I started out, I didn't do that. And I do it now. I do adjust my rates where I need to. And my clients aren't always thrilled. People will call me and say, I want to get my taxes done cheaply. And I'm like, well, then I might not be the one to do the work, because my value isn't just putting numbers into a return. You're getting my qualifications, you're getting my research knowledge, my ability to chat with you throughout the year. So I agree with you. I think entrepreneurs really need to take that time to understand their value and not apologize for it.
That's right. You do not need to justify. That's what the idea of deserving sounds like to me is, do I deserve it or not? And you don't need to justify receiving money. You never do.
Right. And I think what I hear is you need to show the value for what they're getting. And if you can say, these are my services, this is what I can provide you, without the justification, just saying, this is what I provide you, I think you're going to get further with people and why you price things.
Well, the interesting thing about money is that it's so subjective. And I once had an experience where somebody that I knew, I was doing a group coaching program and kind of underpriced. I think it was like $275.
Right.
And there was a man that I knew that had done other work with me previously and thought he would be a good person to do it. And he said, no, I didn't really want to spend the money right now. And I was like, $275, wasn't it? And right. That was unpriced. But then I found out that he bought into Tony Robbins' program, multiples of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Not that long after he told me he didn't really want to spend the money on my dopey $275 ass.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And it was somebody I happen to know pretty well. And I said, well, how'd that ever work out for you? What did you think? Because I don't know. It was really maybe I should know about it,
Right. What did I miss?
And he said, yeah, it wasn't that good for him.
Right.
Tony Robbins might be the most amazing business person program.
Absolutely.
Many people that have done thousands of dollars of work, whatever. I'm just saying he did not create the value for himself that he wanted. And I would think about that example because, like, I was asking for $275,
Right.
and you went up $3,000 of money, quote, didn't have. So I never listen to people when they tell me they don't have money.
I understand that. And I think you're right. I think it's truly about the value. So how or why are you so passionate about helping the entrepreneur? What is it that you've learned with your growing up on the sheep farm or just creating your own business that you find gives you the passion to help others?
Well, it's an interesting question, too, because I did grow up not having a lot of money and seeing how my mother was actually, as a lot of people are, very good at what she did. She was actually a very skilled fiber artist. So the product was sheepskin coats and yarn, and we went to festivals and we would shear the sheep and we would spin, and people would buy the yarn and the products from us, and we would go to these different fairs.
Pennsylvania's known for its fairs. So
That's absolutely right. And I spent a lot of time at them.
Yes. Good for
both at the Three Rivers Arts Festivals.
It is an amazing festival down at the Point, and I guess it's expanded. I haven't been for many years.
And I have this fabulous photo of my mother with a sheep. We would take these live sheep.
Oh, good. Wow.
And the way that we got them to the plaza where we were doing this was through the elevator in the building from the parking lot.
Oh, that is so funny.
That's a very vivid memory. But I had this great picture of my mother with a live sheep that she's shearing in front of a huge crowd. I mean, people would gather to watch. And there's even a television camera guy looking on,
Impressive.
So the news and things a lot. So there was this way, and maybe some of the people listening can relate to this, in which you're very good at something and you can be getting some good publicity. I mean, we were in the paper all the time, but eventually my mother ended up declaring bankruptcy. No, it's a little complicated when you're talking about family farms and those types of things. But I always think about how she did not have the support that I provide to all my clients. A marketing coach. She didn't have somebody to tell her, no, don't spend money on newspaper ads. And then she just didn't have anybody to help her make decisions or to be a sounding board or even to keep her accountable for work that she was doing. It was all just, hey, maybe this will work. So there's this tremendous deep sense of yearning for, if only I could go back and help my mother. Of course, she's passed away and the farm no longer is in our hands. So I have this little bit like underdog, right? I want people to feel empowered. I want them to feel like that they're creating the progress that they want. I want them to feel like they're expressing their authentic creative selves out in the universe and solving people's problems for them. And most of what keeps entrepreneurs from moving forward is fear.
I agree. It is fear. Yeah. I definitely agree. And I think in that process, like, what do you talk to your clients about? You have these 3 keys to abundant business. What are the things that when you sit down with them, is it the same 3 keys to abundant business, or do you tailor it to the client that you're working with, but there's still some underlying consistency there?
Well, you mentioned the 3 keys to an abundant business, and I'll share what those are quickly so people know what they are. And they are consistent, but how they get applied to each person is a little different, of course, depending on their own background. So the 3 keys to an abundant business are, number 1, ask powerfully. And by ask powerfully, what I mean is, are you asking for the sale? Like me with my silly $275. He probably would have valued it more if I'd valued it at $1,000. So where are the places where you're not taking that extra step to even at the end of a sales call to say, are you ready to work with me? Or what's your next step? So we don't want to be pushy. And by powerfully also, I mean, be very specific. I want to make more money is not specific.
I agree. I've tried and I've learned, I guess I figured this out to a degree on my own, that I say to my clients, this is what I do for you. These are my steps and why I do them. And then at the end, I will say to them, you have to think about this, because hiring a CPA, hiring an accountant, it's hard for people to know, can I trust that person with my data and then doing the work, and will they do it properly? And I say, take time to think about it and let me know. And I usually will follow up also, like, thank you for meeting me today and having conversations. If you have any questions, let me know. And I've had to learn that, because you're right. There's that fear in there to have to be very specific and powerful to show I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's interesting as I'm listening to you. I just want all of us also to be noticing always the beliefs that we have that have us operate a certain way. So you said, first of all, I know you need some time to think about it. Well, people may not actually need time to think about it, because 65% of the time when people go off to think about it, they think, man. So I'm always a little bit taken aback when people just say, yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm like, really? You're already
Are
ready?
you sure? Yeah.
That's actually the third key, which is receiving graciously. So sometimes we're not ready to receive the yes. We're not ready to receive this very big rush of abundance that will come right towards us in that moment where somebody says, I'm ready to start now. So we aren't prepared for that. To say to somebody, are you ready to make a decision today, or would you like time to think about it? And then we're going to learn more about it, because for some people, it's not hard. It's really not hard. Even they've already talked to 3 other CPAs. Maybe they just hit it in a way that they haven't already. I've also noticed that if I'm the last person they talk to, they're more likely to hire me than if I'm the first person they talk to.
Interesting. I think you're right. I think it also goes to the potential client as well. I try to also say, like, I am not going to be offended if you don't go with me, because yeah, it hurts me financially. I don't get that sale. I don't get that business, but that's not necessarily my number one reason why I do what I do. I mean, it is part of why I do it, but I love helping businesses, entrepreneurs. I love helping people understand their accounting, their tax. And I think from a client aspect, when they're doing this, there are people who don't want to offend you either. So I guess that's why I use that out. Like, think about it and let me know, because I want to try to make them comfortable too and know I'm not going to be angry or mad that they chose to go with somebody else.
Yeah, and I might also say something like, what's your timeline for making a decision?
That's a good one, yeah.
Which is, now I'm allowing you the space to think about it at the same time. And then the other thing I love about that is then they'll say, I want to make a decision within the next week. Holding people accountable is very effective. So great, if I don't hear from you by the end of this week, I'll reach back out to you. Now I've set up the expectation again to that ask. Hello, have you made a decision yet? Sometimes people go away and it's hard to ever get them back.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Or I have found sometimes even when they have said, I'm not sure right now, a lot of it is the cost. I do get a lot of people saying, oh, I'm just not sure I can afford that. And I say, I understand that. But I also say having an accountant on board as an entrepreneur, I think a professional in that regards is really important, even if it's someone to just bounce ideas off. How we do our billing, and we're trying to get away from the hourly kind of fee. And I think it's that mindset. And I think however you price yourself, however you try to grow your business, you have to really look also at the market. What are people within your field doing in your area? Can you stand out? And I know you mentioned the first and the third. So what's the second key to being an abundant business?
So the second key is to give wholeheartedly. So if you are looking at them in a linear way, ask powerfully, then people would say, okay, so then the next step would be to receive. But actually, what you want to do is you want to start giving. So give wholeheartedly. So for instance, if you're looking for clients, help somebody else get a client. There are, money gurus out there that say when they started giving money is when they started receiving money. And I just had a conversation with a client who wanted to go out on his own. He just quit his job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yay. Good. That's a good thing then. Positive.
Yeah. Yeah. So he just quit his job and he said, I'm just 2 weeks in now. And I said, now what? And I said, I think you should look around and see where you can contribute the most to people. So you're not sitting around, because it's a very defeating, like collapsing type of feeling when you're thinking, oh, now it's all going to come rushing towards me. And then it doesn't. And then you sort of get into that scarcity feeling. So the one way to combat that is to fill the experience with the giving experience. Could be connecting with someone on LinkedIn and saying, how can I contribute? How can I help? And other ways that you can do that.
Yeah, I think that's great.
So it sounds linear: ask powerfully, give wholeheartedly, receive graciously. It's circular. So here's an example. Bet you people listening to this podcast right now have people that owe them money.
Probably a lot of businesses. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And there's where you can have a couple of experiences. One is you could go and ask powerfully. You could say, you owe me money and I'm ready to receive. And the second one is a lot of us don't follow up with our clients and people that we send our invoices to. And that is so an aspect of receiving, because it's about having the space to receive the money that is owed to you.
Yeah, you're right. It's a hard thing when you send your invoice or you're building your business and you're trying to grow your business. You don't want to lose that potential client or customer, but at the same time, you shouldn't leave money on the table. And I know over the last 11 years, I've left money on the table because I haven't charged for certain things. Again, there are clients out there that aren't necessarily happy that I've changed some of my policies or I'm making it tighter, but that's money I've left on the table that I shouldn't have. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just, like you said, you have to have the confidence, I think, to go ahead and say, all right, that is money owed to me. And the way I build that connection with that client is show them that I don't just let them get away with it, I guess, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like you said, being powerful in that.
Yes. So I used to work at a freelance job and I did training there for many years, actually, over at A&E Television. And so I had to track my hours and I had to track them by project. So I would be working on a couple of different projects and then, they're billed separate in different departments. So I billed in 15-minute increments. And I can tell you there were a lot of 15 minutes that I never billed because I didn't track them. So that's one thing, is we're not careful about it. We estimate, say, if you are billing hourly, which I should say we don't really recommend, but if you are billing hourly, have you really billed for everything you've done?
Yeah. Be mindful about it. My monthly clients, I charge annual fee, they pay monthly, and I have a portal where I can track the time. I still track my time when I'm working on my monthly clients because I want to know the value. Am I billing appropriately? And sometimes they'll ask like, hey, how long does it really take you to do my monthly work? Because it is important, I think, for analyzing, but you're right. Again, money left on the table if you're not being mindful and aware.
And then the other thing that people do is, so in the one hand, sometimes you might, especially in the tech world that I grew up in business, I would do tech support. Let's say I was on for 47 minutes. We tracked per 3-minute increment. But the first 7 minutes were just finding out what the problem is. Or maybe the last 15 minutes was, well, I really can't solve your problem. So you can choose when to give wholeheartedly. I'm not going to charge you for that time. I didn't know the answer. So I spent 15 minutes trying to troubleshoot, only to find out I didn't know. Had to escalate it, go to someone else, come back, solve your problem. Okay. So that's okay. That's okay to
Absolutely.
30 of the 47 minutes. And we used to put that into the database all the time. The other side of it, though, is when we don't bill because we're afraid of how it will be received on the other end. Like, well, so expensive. Wow, it took you 55 minutes. No, most of it is imagined. Most of it is we're imagining that they're going to get our invoice. And I had so many conversations with clients about that. Like, I don't know how much I should charge. Oh, what's the high number? One client recently she's doing some big work and she was like, well, I'm thinking $25,000 a month. And I said, okay, well, what do you really want? Well, really, it's $45,000. So I said, well, start with $45,000. I mean, we're talking big numbers here. And she went and she asked for the 45, and guess what? They just accepted it without any question.
Which is great. But I agree. I think there's fear in that. I think as entrepreneurs, small business owners, your passion about what you're providing, whether it's a product or a service or a combination, and you're passionate about it. And on some level, you don't not want to make those sales or talk about that. But I think in all that too is knowing your client. Like there have been clients over the years that I've taken on that after a while I'm going, oh, this just isn't a good fit. And I think that is part of growing your business as well, and maybe getting unstuck to a degree. As you're working with your clients, do you find that there's some of that too, working and coaching them and saying, it's okay to not service that person for your own sanity or your own growth? It doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. And I also have had clients who have disappeared on me. I've had a multiple number of clients who have paid in full, and they would say, no, I don't want to do any more coaching sessions. And the old me, oh, then I should refund your money. This actually happened relatively recently, but I actually did give her money back because I just felt like it wasn't a fit. And I could see it.
There was something. Yeah.
Or there was as much on my side as it was on her side.
I understand. Been there, done that. I'm very clear in the service business, having an engagement letter, having a contract, having something that lays it out, I think is very important for both sides. And I've had clients who will just sign it and won't even read it because they'll tell me, I signed it, I didn't read it. I'm like, well, you should, because there are things like this. What isn't refundable? What are you charging for as an entrepreneur? And again, there are certain times that you have to charge and they don't get their money back.
And part of it is what I've learned is just to slow down. I'll give you another example. There was a man at the beginning of the year, paid in full, and he did a couple calls and he just didn't follow up. And I emailed him several times. After a while, I just let it go because I cannot want it more for you than you want it for you.
This is very true.
Might have decided no, that he didn't want it. Now, again, my old me might have said, well, if you're not going to use the coaching calls, then I don't want to hold the money if you want to. But then the more newer me is saying, okay, well, if you want your money back, I guess you'll ask for it. And I didn't ever say, I'm not going to coach you. And by the way, if he showed up tomorrow, and I've had this happen also, where people come months later and say, oh, this happened and now I really want to get started. Absolutely. I'm 100% going to honor that money. But it's this way in which we're like uncomfortable holding on to something that we feel, I should give you your money back. And now you can ask me for it back. And if you don't ask me for it back, then that means you're not expecting it back.
Right. Very true. And I guess as entrepreneurs, not just from a finance standpoint, but just in a general sense of your business, understanding those things. And I've always been of the philosophy, I was an executive director of a nonprofit, and I always got when I came in, oh, that's how we've always done it. In the accounting world, we call that Sally, same as last year kind of a thing, always doing the same thing. And I learned to question and go, well, why can't we try something else? And if it doesn't work, we'll go back to the way it was, or maybe it will work. Maybe it will help us. Hey, it's time for a money break. Welcome back from our money break. Is there something, whether in your own business or that you've seen with your clients about overcoming an issue with the business? Anything you can share to let entrepreneurs know that it's ebbs and flows, it's ups and downs, and you can overcome it, if, again, trying to get rid of that fear or networking or having a coach like you kind of help you through that. Anything you can share on that?
So one thing I think that gets people in trouble, as it were, is thinking that they're eventually going to never have fear again, or they're going to sort of get it handled, as it were. And of course, I'm hoping that over time, you're going to be committing to bigger experiences. There's a saying around in the coaching world, new level, new devil. So you commit to that bigger thing. Maybe you committed to doing one-on-one coaching, and then you say, now I want to do a group coaching program. Now I'm going to do an online coaching program. Put a freebie out there. Now I'm going to start doing Facebook ads, or now I'm going to just ask for more money. A lot of people start with a certain amount, and then they go, okay, I've been doing this for a while, and now let me push and get more. So you're probably not ever going to not have any fear. I always like to say even the Dalai Lama has limitations.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think we all have limitations. And I think it's also okay as you're overcoming and growing. I've had the sense at times going, did I do too much too fast? How do I kind of pull back a little bit to refocus? And then do you feel that's also important for entrepreneurs to take stock in that and maybe take a step back? to grow. Do you find that with your clients?
Well, the thing about that, I ran into a man I was talking to once. Everybody wants to like hit it big or go viral.
I agree.
And this goes back to the receiving graciously. Are you prepared for that amount of fame or fortune? Are you ready to receive that? So this man happened to he was a musician. He did a video with his brother. It was somehow went viral. He was on radio stations and, he had all these things and he got thousands of comments on the video. And then it stopped. It died down. He said, I wasn't prepared for being able to handle the volume. And part of it is, he said, people would leave these comments and I just didn't have the bandwidth. I couldn't go on and comment. And, it was like a one-time,
one-hit wonder. Well, I've done this podcast now. I'm coming into year 2. I've been working on this, and I had a little bit of a jump when I was with iHeartRadio and Seneca Women. So I had a little cushion and training and all that, which was fabulous. I'm on my own independently. And from my perspective, for me, not that I don't want money from ads or just people getting involved, but my focus is the financial literacy for small business owners, for individuals. But there are people who get into certain areas like podcasting or writing a book or whatever, thinking right off the bat, I'm going to hit it big, and may not also have the support structure in place. And even if they did hit it big, by not having that, and I think that's both financial and, networking and having people there to help you with that, because there are going to be ebbs and flows, especially as an entrepreneur. I think you really have to understand there are going to be downtimes, and that's okay. It's hard, but it's okay to have those downtimes. I think all entrepreneurs go through that.
Well, you just have to expect it. Part of the reason for that, too, is because you work really hard at marketing, getting clients, and you get clients. And now you're very busy with your clients. Guess what? You're not marketing anymore.
Very true.
So that, let's just say a lot of my clients I work with for 6 months as a beginning program. And so there's a lot of work in the beginning, and then it kind of, now ready for more clients. So you cannot control that. You can prepare for it, but you cannot control that.
Very true. Very true.
You can control the boat, but not the river.
Yeah.
So that means that you want to be expecting that so that when it happens, you don't get thrown by it. What happens is all those scarcity-based thoughts come into your brain, all the fears, it's not really working. And we've all had times when we're so busy we don't know what to do with ourselves, and sometimes that we're not. And I've noticed that in the summer, really slows down. I like to do my music stuff in the summer. I do bluegrass festivals. I go around. I have a lot of fun. And now, like about this time of year, I wake up and go, well, where is everybody?
Right. Having to get the motivation to get back into it. For me, my busiest time of year is January to April for tax season. And I'm still doing work throughout the year. I still have clients who go on extension. I still have my monthly clients that I'm doing accounting work for and other things. But there is that lull. I go through a period of just like, I don't go to the office. I'm doing work, but I'm really kind of like getting up late in the morning, and I make my own schedule because I can, but it's getting back into it as well. When you have those lows, are there any tips or tricks that you talk to your clients about that? Like, what can you do to get yourself kind of over that low point, to know that what you're doing, you're providing something great out there. You just got to get over that hump kind of a thing.
Well, what we don't remember, because we're so disconnected from it, is that we started as an agrarian. Is that the right word? Farming.
Yes. Yeah.
So nobody, I don't want to say they didn't do anything in the winter, but there was a lot less to do. You'd make the hay, and there would be lambing season. There would be times when it was very, very busy. And so evolutionarily wise, we actually aren't developed evolutionarily to be constantly going.
Right. Very true.
I even heard that the siestas in Spain are going away now. They don't do that.
Oh.
Because there's so much, American Western, Western too, but this idea of like, no, you have to be 9 to 5, work all day, which came about because there was no control over that. And the irony of all this is that people want to be entrepreneurs because they want to be able to set their own schedule.
You're right. But I think as an entrepreneur, on some level, you're still working 24/7 because it's you.
Right. a lot of times when I start with entrepreneurs, they say, well, what should I start with? Because that's the big question. What should I do next? And I was like, I don't know. Let's make a list. You start. And then they start and blah, 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 blah. They give me 20 things that they know they could be doing. And then we prioritize those things. The other one is we imagine, oh, I can sleep late in July because nobody's looking for their tax return. But when there's too much space for us, that's uncomfortable too. We think we want that, but free time is not necessarily your friend. Then you're like, I could just do anything all day today. So that's part of it, is knowing that right now it feels empty and you're filled with fear because maybe you're never going to get another client again for the rest of your life.
I think it's the flexibility. I think it's that if you're working for yourself, and yes, you could be an entrepreneur, small business owner, and you have employees, but if you have that flexibility where I still have to go and do the work. I have to keep myself kind of involved in it, but it's okay. And I think you're right, that grace of it's okay to take a step back and maybe change your schedule a little, because self-care is so important. I think you would agree that self-care as an entrepreneur, I think, is really important to help you stay passionate about what you do.
Yeah, I loved that book, The Morning Miracle. I read that, and that was probably maybe even 10 years ago. And what he did was, as you can imagine, he made up a routine for his morning that included learning, exercising, meditation, what was matter to him. And it really made a big difference for me. I do a voice warm-up, I exercise, I listen to some Esther Hicks meditations, and then I know I can schedule a call for 9:00. I will do it. I can absolutely be there. I mean, I live and work in the same place. But if I do my calls at 9:30, and by the way, I had to get brave about saying that to people. I don't do calls before 9:30 because that seemed like, what? You don't even start work till 9:30?
Right, because they don't realize you are working on yourself or preparing for the day. And I agree with you. I shift my hours. Now, granted, tax season, I will work every day of the week because it's busy. Doesn't mean I'm all doing returns, but it's emails and getting in touch with clients and taking that time to prepare for the next week. And then, of course, I shift it off season because I'm not working on the weekends. But it's also that mentality of getting my clients used to, I'll respond to you, but these are my hours. And I set them because I need to get myself in that mindset to do your work.
Yeah, and it's a scarcity-based thought also to say, well, I better be available when they need me to be available, because if I'm not available, then they might think I'm not.
That I'm not working, right? And it's that precedence. If my client emailed me at 10 o'clock at night, I would email them back immediately. And I had to train myself. I don't need to do that unless it's an emergency. And sometimes you have no choice. But I have trained myself, especially not tax season, I will not answer phone calls or emails from Friday night until Monday morning. It'll be there on Monday. And even during tax season, if I am busy working, I won't pick up the phone right away, but I'll get back to that client. So I think you're right. Setting those boundaries are important. And I think people respect that more.
Yeah, and they adapt to it.
Yeah.
Again, if somebody says, I really only have 9 a.m., I'll do it. But I more and more said, no, that my best times are these. I make that choice. So being present to what your needs are and what works for you, and finding out that clients actually are fairly adaptable.
Yeah. It is a good point to let entrepreneurs and small business owners know that if somebody makes that comment like, oh, well, you post something on social media, right? Let's just say you post something and someone goes, oh, well, then you're not working. Well, if it's a business post, you are working. You're advertising. You're doing marketing. I think that social media, I think that the internet has changed how business and entrepreneur owners have to work. And I think that's where this 24/7 mindset of I always have to be on call so my clients think I'm working, and you don't. I think that needs to be put out there for entrepreneurs. Do you run into that a lot with your clients, getting them to understand that?
Yes. So the irony is that's why so many people are in business, because they want that flexibility. They don't want to be beholden to somebody. Like, I literally in 27 years, actually probably a little bit longer than that, I did have a couple of jobs out of college that were jobs, but I am literally in So all the time I've been in business for 27 years, never had to ask anybody for time off or to do anything. If it was a Friday morning, Christopher Columbus Day,
Yeah.
or the music thing, then I did it. And not to say that I wasn't very sensitive. In fact, I made the mistake when I had my first child. He's 23 now. When I first had him, and I mentioned I was working for A&E Television, and I was pretty much full-time working there, I took 8 weeks off or something. I was so concerned about getting back. And I just think back and I go, I couldn't have taken another 4 weeks. Yeah. By the time my daughter came 3 years later, I said, no, I'm going to take 3 months off. And even that's not enough time. It was more important to me to be available to them at pick up from the bus or to go to that music presentation or to pick them up from after school or whatever it was. But still, I had this feeling, this scarcity-based feeling that if I wasn't immediately available to go back to doing that, they would fire me. Basically, was my main fear.
Well, and I think, that's our society, though, here in the U.S. There is that mentality, especially when you don't work for yourself. You are working for somebody else. They are providing you your paycheck, health benefits, things like that. So it is understandable. But I also think, yes, if you do go and end up working for yourself, that flexibility, that was one of my main reasons that I went out on my own 11 years ago, was I needed flexibility with my 2 young kids. They're almost 20 and 23 now, and I'm just in the last few years when they're off at college, they're out and about, kind of going, oh, I don't have to go to that school play. Or although my older son was a college athlete as well, and he swam, and so I went up as often as I could to go see him swim. But now that has ended after 15 years. He's not doing that. So now I'm like, wow, I have a little more time to grow my business. Maybe spending more time on the marketing when there have been times in the past when I couldn't. Or, making sure reviewing my financials, because I think that's important too. I think all entrepreneurs, whether it's monthly, quarterly, should be reviewing where they're at financially and making adjustments where necessary. So yeah, the flexibility is great. And that's not to say if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, you don't want to have your own small business and you love working for other people, that's fine. We're not saying that. We're just saying for those that do, that flexibility is great.
Yeah, the question is, are you doing what you want to be doing? Ideally, I think jobs would be more successful if they allowed people more flexibility and freedom.
I think COVID kind of put a little bit of a reset, I think, for everybody on that. I think now we're getting back to a lot of companies want their workers to come back in. They don't want them working from home or having that flexible schedule, and they're hitting some walls with that because for a lot of people, they're finding that it was very productive to not be tied to this office mentality, but it goes both ways. And I think even for entrepreneurs, and I think there are people who go into business for themselves and maybe after so many years of doing it, they decide, you know what, this really isn't for me. And that's okay as well.
Yeah, the statistic that says 50% of small businesses fail after 5 years, whatever. The thing about that is that it's misleading because there are so many reasons that people might go out of business. And some of them is because they just got bored with it. If I hadn't shifted over to business coaching, I don't know what I would be doing. I have other interests. I created a ukulele course.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I just think that's so cool. And I think it's good. If you have a hobby or a passion about something, bringing that into your business too can help with you for your business. Because again, it kind of helps you reset. To be honest, doing my podcast stuff on some level, even I'm talking about money and I'm talking about tax or accounting, it's my step away from doing the actual work. It kind of resets me and gets me going to go, all right, I now need to go back and I can do my work. And that reset, I think, is very important.
Yeah. And as far as whether or not how successful your business is, part of the problem that we have is we're constantly comparing other people or reading, how fabulously so-and-so is doing. Tony Robbins owns an island in Tahiti or Thailand.
Oh, I would love that. The island in Tahiti, that to me, I need to be somewhere warm.
And sometimes that can be very defeating for us, not just being an entrepreneur, but in general. Just remember that 50 to 70% of what you're seeing online or reading about is, I don't want to say it's fake. Maybe that's a little harsh, but it's doctored up.
It can be, yep. or it's a portion of what they're truly going through or doing. It's not all of what you're going through and doing, especially in the business world. It's a capture of that moment in time.
That's right. To capture in that moment in time. Everybody on some level has some fears. Otherwise, we wouldn't be operating in the way that we do. And that big part of being an entrepreneur is the mindset. And as a coach, of course, what I help people with quite a bit is first, figure out what your vision is. What's your vision? Secondly, what's your plan? And what's the strategy? The biggest value of getting into action in any situation, whether it's entrepreneurship or just health journey or anything, biggest value of getting into action is so that you can bump up against what's not working, work out what's not working. How can you work out what's not working if you're not doing it?
Oh, that's interesting. And as we wrap up here on the podcast, is there any last minute insights or tips or tricks that you love sharing with your clients that you'd be willing to share here with my listeners today?
Well, let's go back to something we talked about at the very beginning, which is the value and the deserving and that kind of thing. So I've heard about, or I know sometimes people will, be told, stand in front of a mirror and just say, I am worthy. I am worthy. I deserve it. I am worthy. And listen, if that's what your morning routine is, great. Do that. I'm not saying don't do it. But I am saying, what I do want to say is that you don't have money because you deserve it. You have money because you had a solution for a problem and they gave you money to solve it. And then you received it. Okay. They are not sitting around going, I just want to give Samantha the money because she really deserves it. She's such a worthy person. No, they're saying, how much money can I save on my taxes next year? And if you help me untangle this mess, I didn't know. Last year, I didn't keep any of my receipts straight.
I do work on that. It is crazy. Yeah.
So they're not saying she deserves it. That's not what they're saying. They're not thinking about you.
Right. Okay? They're thinking about themselves.
And so just let that go. It's not a deserving conversation. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to do any of that. What problem can you solve for people?
And how do you put it out there for you to solve it?
Let people know about it and think about them instead of thinking that they're thinking about you.
Yeah. This is wonderful. This has been really exciting. I've really enjoyed talking to you. So where can entrepreneurs or small business owners find you? And I'll put all that into the podcast description as well.
Well, I'm online, lizwolfecoaching.com, and that's Wolf with an E. So lizwolfecoaching.com. So if you do visit there, you'll get a pop-up for a quiz that I created recently, which is helping you to figure out your CEO personality, your leadership style.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, I'll have to go take that quiz.
Yeah, 4 different types, and it's just a fun, short quiz, but it's very accurate, and there's a lot of content that you will get as a result of participating. They'll help you to figure out your business working style. So I invite everybody who would like to do that to jump on there and do that.
Awesome. And I will put that in the podcast description. But Liz, thank you so much for joining me on Your Financial Maven today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. This is really fun.
Follow, like, and subscribe to Your Financial Maven wherever you listen to your podcasts. And make sure that you leave your money stories or questions for me at www.yourfinancialmavenpodcast.com. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about money. The purpose of this podcast is to provide general information on the subjects discussed. It is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It is not meant to resolve your specific financial needs or situations. Please consult with your CPA, tax, or financial professionals. Your Financial Maven is hosted and produced by Samantha M. Besnoff, CPA, and Your Financial Maven, LLC. Editing is done by Chris Zarnock of KM Zen Creative. Music is written, composed, and performed by Daniel Shore.